Hold on to your seats and prepare for a bombshell because the whispers from the darkest corners of the internet are no longer whispers. They're a deafening roar. Sources are claiming that Marjorie Harvey, matriarch of the Harvey clan and a woman with a past more colorful than a rainbow, is on the absolute brink of exposing Sean Diddy Combs for allegedly victimizing, tormenting, and perhaps irreparably damaging her precious daughter, Lori Harvey. We've all felt it in our guts, haven't we? That so-called relationship between Diddy and Lori was always more than just a little creepy. It was profoundly unsettling, to say the very least. But now, with Marjorie allegedly breaking her silence, armed with first-hand accounts and a mother's fury, it looks like the horrifying reality of what Lori endured was far, far worse than any of us could have ever dared to imagine. Let's be brutally honest. Diddy's track record with women is, and always has been, abysmal. We've known for years that he didn't exactly treat the women in his life like queens, not even Kim Porter, the sainted mother of his children, whom he often, and perhaps performatively, referred to as the love of his life. But the recent trial, the Cassie Ventura lawsuit, ripped the designer veil off his carefully constructed persona, exposing a pattern of alleged abuse, control, and depravity that has left the world reeling in disgust. We've heard testimonies that paint a picture more horrible, more twisted, than anything our darkest nightmares could conjure. And just as we're trying to process the sheer scale of those horrors, Marjorie Harvey allegedly steps into the fray, claiming with a mother's protective rage that her daughter, Lori, is yet another name on the long, tragic list of women Diddy has allegedly hurt, manipulated, and perhaps broken. So, the burning questions are almost too terrifying to ask. What exactly did Diddy allegedly do to Lori Harvey to get Marjorie, a woman who has seen and survived more than her fair share of darkness, this profoundly freaked out, this ready to talk? And what role, if any, did Steve Harvey, Lori's stepfather and Diddy's supposed peer, play in all of this? Did he really, as some whispers suggest, put pressure on a young Lori to date the much older, notoriously predatory Diddy? Let's attempt to break down this horrifyingly tangled web. It's been a shocking 7 years since Lori Harvey, then a fresh-faced 22-year-old, was first publicly linked with Diddy, who was rapidly approaching his 50th birthday. And let's be clear, even after all this time, the sheer audacity and creepiness of that relationship are just as jarring, just as stomach-churning, as they were the very first moment the news broke. We're talking about a nearly 30-year age gap, a chasm of experience and power that most people immediately, and rightly, flagged as deeply problematic. But the more you delve into the timeline, the more bizarre, the more predatory, the entire situation becomes. Consider this. By the time Lori Harvey was even born, Diddy was already a grown man, a rising music mogul with a 5-year-old son, Justin Combs. So, when Lori and Diddy allegedly began their relationship, she was, in fact, younger than Diddy's own adult son. You truly just had to be there to witness the sheer, unadulterated mess of it all. It was a PR nightmare unfolding in real time, a public spectacle of questionable choices and even more questionable power dynamics. And just when you thought this scenario couldn't possibly get any weirder, any more uncomfortable, trust me, there's always more when Diddy is involved. It turns out Diddy hadn't just met Lori as a 22-year-old adult. He had known her for years before they ever allegedly got together romantically. He and Lori's stepfather, Steve Harvey, moved in similar affluent, celebrity-filled circles for a long time. They weren't necessarily super tight, best friend confidants, but they were definitely familiar acquaintances, a part of the same exclusive Hollywood ecosystem. This means Diddy had allegedly been around Lori, observing her, perhaps even interacting with her since she was a young teenager, maybe even younger. That crucial piece of information is what made the entire subsequent dating scenario feel extra off, extra predatory, extra calculated. She wasn't some stranger he randomly met and fell for as an adult. She was someone he had known during her most formative, vulnerable years, while she was still a kid, almost like a distant family acquaintance. So, when he later, as a man nearing 50, allegedly started pursuing and dating her as a young woman barely out of her teens, it understandably made many people deeply uncomfortable, raising serious questions about grooming and the abuse of power. And if that isn't enough to make your skin crawl, here's where the story gets even messier, even more disrespectful, if that's even possible. Lori Harvey reportedly started her public dalliance with Diddy just a few short, almost insultingly, brief months after his longtime ex and the mother of his children, Kim Porter, tragically and unexpectedly passed away. And this wasn't some distant, casual connection. Lori and Kim were actually known to be pretty close, part of the same extended social circle. After Kim's death, Lori even posted a seemingly heartfelt tribute on Instagram, writing with apparent sincerity. "Having a hard time processing this one. You were such a beautiful person inside and out. I'm so glad I told you how much I loved and missed you the last time I saw you. Your energy was truly something special. An angel on earth and now in heaven. R.I.P. Mama Kemp." A beautiful sentiment on the surface. But then, just a couple of months later, in a move that can only be described as shockingly insensitive at best and deeply calculated at worst, she was suddenly, and very publicly, dating Kim Porter's grieving ex, Diddy. That undeniably had people talking, and not in a good way. It just didn't sit right with anyone who had a moral compass. It felt disrespectful to Kim's memory, to her children, to everyone who loved her. Some folks immediately started wondering if Lori was genuinely into Diddy at all, or if there was something much deeper, perhaps something more transactional or coercive, going on behind the carefully curated celebrity scenes. And honestly, from that point on, the situation only got more awkward, more indefensible. Not long after she and Diddy officially went public with their questionable romance, eagle-eyed internet sleuths noticed that Lori had quietly, almost secretively, deleted her heartfelt Instagram tribute to Kim Porter. But you know how the internet works. Once it's out there forever. Screenshots don't lie. This act of digital erasure made it seem to many like she was desperately trying to erase her previous connection with Kim, as if she was deliberately distancing herself from Kim's memory now that she was firmly in Diddy's orbit, a move that many interpreted as a sign of Diddy's controlling influence or her own callous ambition. Now, throughout this entire bizarre and uncomfortable saga, we all kept thinking, surely Steve and Marjorie Harvey, Lori's parents, were going to step in, draw a line in the sand, and put an immediate, definitive end to this clearly inappropriate and potentially damaging relationship involving their young daughter and a man almost 3 decades her senior who had known her since childhood. But, in a shocking twist that left many bewildered, the exact opposite seemed to happen. In fact, it looked for all the world like Steve and Marjorie not only tolerated, but actively supported the relationship. They were infamously photographed on a lavish vacation with Diddy and Lori, and the pictures didn't exactly scream parental disapproval. If anything, they looked disturbingly cozy, almost like one big, happy, albeit incredibly dysfunctional family. However, not long after that eyebrow-raising family vacation, Diddy and Lori abruptly broke up, and a collective sigh of relief was heard across the internet because, as previously stated, the entire affair was just profoundly weird and unsettling. But now, the streets are buzzing with a new explosive narrative that it was Marjorie herself who was secretly behind the sudden breakup. Word on the street is that Marjorie, despite the public appearances, finally saw firsthand, perhaps during that infamous vacation, exactly how Diddy was allegedly treating her precious baby girl. And whatever she witnessed was so horrifying, so unacceptable, that she was absolutely not having it anymore. Allegedly, Diddy treated Lori just as abysmally, just as disrespectfully, just as controllingly, as he had reportedly treated his previous girlfriends. A long list of women who have since come forward with their own harrowing tales. You see, Lori and Diddy's alleged relationship started not long after Cassie Ventura finally, miraculously, managed to escape Diddy's allegedly abusive clutches. And Diddy, true to his alleged predatory pattern, was reportedly desperately looking for a replacement victim, a new young woman to groom and control. So, I guess in a twisted way, it was a good thing after all that Marjorie and Steve went on that vacation, because it allegedly gave Marjorie the horrifying insight she needed to intervene. Now, to truly put into perspective how utterly wild, how terrifyingly depraved Diddy's alleged treatment of Lori must have been for Marjorie Harvey, of all people, to be freaked out by it, I think I need to remind y'all that Marjorie herself used to be all about that life. And when I say that life, I mean the dangerous, high-stakes world of serious crime. Homegirl used to be married to not one, but two notorious drug dealers, major players in the game, and somehow, almost miraculously, she escaped completely unscathed, without a single charge, without a day in court. That's not just luck, that's skill. Marjorie's first husband was a man named Jim Townsend, and he wasn't just some small-time street corner hustler. He was deep in the game, a significant figure in a large-scale drug trafficking operation, dealing serious, life-destroying stuff like nose candy. And we're talking major weight, the kind of quantities that get you life sentences, not something you casually mention at Sunday brunch. He and Marjorie had one child together, and she was actually pregnant with their second when everything came crashing down around them in a spectacular fashion. In 1992, Jim Townsend got caught red-handed by the feds while attempting to move a staggering 40 kilos, that's about 88 pounds, of cocaine. At the time of Jim's arrest, both the FBI and the DEA had their sights firmly set on Marjorie too. They didn't buy her innocent act, her claims that she had absolutely no clue what her husband Jim was up to, no idea about his vast criminal enterprise. In fact, authorities reportedly suspected she was far more involved, perhaps even a key player, than she ever let on, even while heavily pregnant with their child. But Jim, in a move that some might call loyalty, and others might call self-preservation, for the mother of his children, decided to take all the heat to protect her from prosecution. Word on the streets is that he made a deal, an agreement to keep her name out of it, to ensure she wouldn't face charges. As a direct result of that deal, Jim Townsend ended up being sentenced to life in prison, a fate Marjorie narrowly and perhaps suspiciously avoided. Marjorie was, for a while at least, reportedly definitely grateful to Jim for his sacrifice. That loyalty, however, lasted only about 5 years. Then, in a move that many found cold and calculated, she filed for divorce while he was still locked up, still serving that life sentence he partly took for her. And it certainly didn't take her long to move on either. Her very next man, Danielle Woods, who was, get this, allegedly Jim's own cousin. But the real, almost unbelievable kicker, the detail that solidifies Marjorie's alleged pattern? Danielle Woods was also a major drug dealer. So, after miraculously, or perhaps strategically, escaping serious federal charges the first time around, Marjorie jumped right back into another high-stakes, deeply dangerous relationship with someone heavily involved in the exact same shady criminal game. That move had people seriously and justifiably questioning her intentions, her judgment, her entire persona. And honestly, looking back, it really did look like she was obsessively chasing a certain kind of dangerous, high-octane lifestyle, more than anything else. Perhaps more than love, more than stability, more than the safety of her children. Of course, as it often does, history repeated itself with chilling predictability. Darnell Woods eventually got caught too, busted by the authorities for his own drug trafficking activities. And just like before, with an almost tiresome sense of déjà vu, the FBI and the DEA started sniffing around Marjorie Woods, as she was then known, once again. And honestly, can you really blame them? If someone has already been intimately tied to one notorious drug kingpin and then immediately goes and marries another one, people, especially federal investigators, are naturally going to raise their eyebrows and suspect she's more than just an innocent bystander. But Marjorie, a true master of manipulation and charm, somehow, almost magically, worked her alleged finesse, played the system smart, and once again managed to walk away without a single charge, without a blemish on her official record. Again. Honestly, Marjorie Harvey doesn't get nearly enough credit, or perhaps notoriety, for her extraordinary, almost unbelievable level of strategic maneuvering and her ability to dodge serious, life-altering, legal trouble not just once, but twice, all while being intimately and deeply tied to two major federally convicted drug dealers. That's not just luck, that's some next-level Machiavellian strategy right there. And then, after all that intense drama, after navigating those treacherous criminal underworlds, she ends up marrying a beloved, squeaky-clean millionaire comedian, Steve Harvey, a man who had reportedly been deeply in love with her, carrying a torch for her for nearly 2 long decades. That, my friends, is not luck. That is calculated, strategic, and utterly brilliant in its audacity. And she didn't stop there with her image overhaul and life rebrand. She then had Steve Harvey legally adopt all 3 of her children from her previous relationships with the drug kingpins and officially give them his respected last name, completely and effectively, wiping any public connection, any lingering taint to their biological fathers and the extensive criminal past that inevitably came with them. That incredibly shrewd move wasn't just about love or creating a blended family. It was profoundly smart. She systematically rebranded her entire family, meticulously scrubbing away the dirt of her past, and boldly stepped into a brand new life, a new social stratum, with a seemingly clean slate, a new powerful husband, and a new, respectable image. Whether you admire her undeniable hustle and strategic genius, or side-eye her questionable ethics and calculated choices, you absolutely have to admit, Marjorie Harvey knows how to play the game, and she plays it to win. So, as I said, Marjorie Harvey was undeniably about that life. She navigated worlds most of us can only imagine in movies. So, if she was profoundly horrified, genuinely freaked out by how Diddy was allegedly treating Lori, as the streets are, now screaming, then y'all know it had to be something truly, exceptionally bad. Something that crossed lines even she wasn't comfortable with. But that's not even the end of this horrifying story, because there are some absolutely crazy, deeply disturbing rumors now circulating, alleging that Diddy not only abused and tormented Lori, but also allegedly got her pregnant, and then, in a move of ultimate control and cruelty, forced her to get rid of the baby, to have an abortion against her will. Now, this isn't the first time that Diddy has been accused of doing something so monstrous, so despicable to a woman in his life. Similar allegations have surfaced from other accusers. And yeah, if there's even a shred of truth to these claims about Lori, it's absolutely not surprising. In fact, it's entirely understandable that Marjorie Harvey, whatever her own past, wanted her baby girl out of that toxic, dangerous, and potentially soul-destroying situation immediately and permanently. This is a twisted, tangled web of alleged abuse, power, and dark secrets. What do you think Marjorie Harvey is about to fully reveal about Diddy's alleged torture of Lori? Do you believe the forced abortion claims? Drop your explosive thoughts and theories in the comments below, and then make sure to check out our next video for more shocking celebrity exposés.